Hello and welcome. What does it mean to be dispossessed, to lose ancestral lands and struggle to keep culture and traditions alive? When the Wampanoag Indians shared a harvest feast with English colonists in 1621, the event was known as the first Thanksgiving. But to some, the US holiday marks the day when Native Americans began having their lands and way of life stripped from them. Over the next 200 years, as the US expanded its borders, many Native American tribes faced warfare and broken treaties, leaving large numbers homeless. Often struggling with poverty and disease, many Native Americans find themselves in government-created reservations where the quality of life can resemble that of a third world country. Last month, the US Senate issued a formal apology to Native Americans for, quote, ill-conceived policies and the forced removal of tribes from their homelands. But what does an expression of regret really do to mend the wounds of an entire people? And the consequences of dispossession can be seen around the world today, from the indigenous populations of Australia and Canada to the Palestinians and others. On today's show, we ask what has really happened to America's native Indians and what can be done to protect the rights of dispossessed people across the globe. Remember, you can join the conversation with your questions and comments. Just send us an email, SMS text, or call in during the show. Joining me today from Los Angeles to give us a first-hand perspective is Russell Means, a Native American actor and activist. He was one of the leaders of the American Indian Movement, a civil rights organization that took on the US government in the 1970s to demand for improved conditions for indigenous Americans. Means now seeks recognition for the Republic of Lakota, a country for the Lakota Indians that covers large tracts of land across 5 US states. Russell, it's great to have you back again on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
A pleasure. I've got to ask you, there's still a fair amount of certainty about the origins of the Thanksgiving, America's Thanksgiving Day, and many believe, as we'd mentioned at the beginning, it was that first sort of meal together in 1621 in Plymouth where the Mayflower landed. But either way, it's not a good one for American Native Indians, is it? You see it as a national day of mourning.
Yes, that comes because America, as most of the world now knows, is the biggest liar in history. They're trying to compensate for massive ongoing genocide against my people by having this fake, phony Thanksgiving. And that's way back in the past, and it's untrue. They did have a Thanksgiving, and it's documented. The then governor, English governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, proclaimed a day of Thanksgiving because they slaughtered an Indian village of about 2,000 men, women, and children and old people. And when they were burning it to the ground, as the women and children ran out, they were shot dead. The governor then, and it's still in evidence, we have a copy of it. The proclamation was a proclamation of Thanksgiving, and it stated that all the rest of the colonies should follow their lead and go out and massacre the pagans and have a feast of Thanksgiving.
Now, I wonder,
that is the original Thanksgiving.
I wonder, Russell, that, considering, say, 4 centuries have passed, could it be regarded differently now? Could you accept it as a day where at least Americans of all origins come together, families come together, and perhaps just are thankful for what they have now?
No. United States of America, and it's documented in a book by Ward Churchill called On the Justice of Roosting Chickens, documented evidence that this country has been at war every year of its existence. It's a war-loving nation, and it never stops. Look at Palestine. The exact same methodology is being utilized there. The exact same methodology was used in Australia, in Canada, in Mexico, in the entire Western Hemisphere, and in Africa. So we have this methodology perfected by the United States of America. And they're colonizing now the American people. The world knows how stupid the American is now, that he believes anything his government tells him. It's amazing that these historical lies are so compounded. For example, every despotic president in American history has been lionized as a hero. Just wait a couple of years, Bush is going to be a hero to the American people and in the American historical drama that they always falsely portray. No, what it's like to lose your language, to lose your holy land, to lose your family, to lose all your values, it's criminal.
In terms,
And the United States of America should be tried thusly.
now, Russell, in terms of moving forwards, I mean, in trying to make some kind of reparation, I guess. For a start, one thing, the Friday after Thanksgiving has now been commemorated as a Native American Heritage Day. That's the second year now. At least it's one step forward, isn't it?
There are no steps forward as we lose land and people. That's not step forward. That apology, that phony apology from the Senate, you know, the Congress didn't do it, just one section of it. And that's just the Senate, and I spit on that apology. No one is saying to the American Indian and other colonized peoples in the southern half of the world that we have given the North their wealth. Just think about it. The entire northern section of the world has gotten their wealth from the South. And so we've never, I want to thank you. I want to thank you. That opens up the brain a little bit more than a damn apology.
You know, we had a lot of emails for you that came in, Russell. I'm going to put a couple of them that had a similar theme that came in from the USA. They were sent to our Al Jazeera Your Views page. The first came from Pennsylvania. David Ebert from Pennsylvania wrote in saying, I love the idea of giving Native Americans their own state, but I'm uncertain about the practicality. We're talking about land taken generations ago. I don't support what was done to your ancestors, but my ancestors lived in Europe at the time. Is it fair to ask me to pay for what others did? Now, the next one from Lazuli in Tennessee says, migration and displacement are the story of man. Study the history of language groups and you will see that everyone is living in a place that used to belong to someone else. The answer is not reapportioning land, but making every place a happy and decent place to live for us all. Can you see any validity in that argument? Can there be anything that moves it forward?
Oh, very definitely. In the Republic of Lakota, what we're portraying, you know, over 90% of the population in the existing Republic of Lakota, that 5-state area, over 90% is white. And what we're saying to those white people, look, you can become a Republic of Lakota, and you're going to have true individual freedom through representative government, because we're going to take the concept of the indigenous peoples of the world, and you have a village. And that village has all statehood powers. They take care of everything. Guess what happens when you take care of everything and everyone has a voice? You eliminate the need for police. You eliminate the need for courts and jails and prisons. It's that simple, but it's too profound for these Americans. So that's why we have rejuvenated the Republic of Lakota, and we want to portray what individual freedom through representative government truly means.
Let me ask you to explain the arts of civilization that you feel is being promised to the Native American community. I know you've written about this.
Yes, well, in the treaties, and that is a legal weakness within the courts of the United States of America, by the way, and we might take that legal route soon. But we might sue the United States for reneging on their constitutional mandate that they promise us the arts of civilization. Well, what does that mean? Well, number one is that you own your own land. And that's what we were promised, the arts of civilization. Also, everything in the arts of civilization that provide a good life. Your own language, your own schools, your own banks, your own commerce, your own, and you cannot do that unless you own your property. Those reservations are held in trust by the federal government, and they will not allow economic development. They'll allow a few casinos, and that makes you falsely rich, but your values aren't improved because you're still a beggar, because gambling is nothing more than legal theft. So when you're still refusing welfare, whether it's a pittance from the government or some wealth from alleged wealth from the casino, it makes no difference. It doesn't change your disposition as a human being.
Let me ask you to address an email that came in from Max in California in the USA. Max wrote in saying, while America tells other countries how to properly treat their minorities, she bears the mark of having abused and mistreated the people who are the natives of her land. A phrase I often heard while watching cowboys and Indian TV shows, white man speak with forked tongue. It seems true. Now, I know you're not a big fan of American presidents, but interestingly enough, when President Obama, the first black president of America, was making his inaugural speech, much of the world welcomed that address and felt it was sort of inclusive. But don't you feel that there was did you feel there was anything that at least would include Native Indian American tribes?
Oh, no. Obama said it very carefully in his speech. I listened to it and I read it and I analyzed it. Just before he mentioned the Indians, he's mentioning how essentially America has become this melting pot of all races and that we've all now become Americans. And then he says, and I quote, "The lines of tribes will be diminished," and unquote. The lines of tribes will be diminished. Will, in his written speech, it said shall, but he said will. That is the statement of death. They're going to get rid of us. Listen, Obama is America's good cop. First we had the bad cop, Bush. Now we got the good cop. I call Obama the Manchurian candidate flim-flam man. He's out to swindle the world. However, thanks to the greedy bankers that control him, the United States is going to default in the next few months. You watch, mark my words.
Russell, we've got to take a very short break here. We're going to pause and come back to you in just a moment. More of our discussion with Russell Means when we return. Don't go away.
Dum